This panel is moderated by Behnoosh Sethna, who has a bachelor's in economics finance from the State University of New York in Plattsburgh. Currently, she works at an investment bank. She's participated at the UN Commission for the Status of Women in the past year. Nadia. And now you can see their photos. Nadia Jam has a bachelor's in political science in French immersion and has embarked on the unique international engagement during her studies as a student, employee, and volunteer. She was a panelist of a side event at the UN Commission for the Status of Women, where she and other dedicated women represented FEZANA. Anna Verahrami is currently working as a research assistant and the science communicator for Elephant Listening Project, ELP, a research group at Cornell University focused on monitoring and conserving the forest elephant populations in Central Africa. And lastly, we have Homi Gandhi, the president of FEZANA. He was FEZANA's NGO's first main representative from 2002 to 2014 to the UN in consultation with the ECOSOC and at the DPI. He co-chaired FEZANA's UN NGO subcommittee for the celebration of the UNESCO's declared anniversary. And without further ado, let the panel begin.
Yeah!
Hi everyone, definitely excited to have such a supportive crowd here. So I'm just going to go over what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a little detailed description and history of how FEZANA became a part of the United Nations, and then we have our wonderful speakers Anna and Nadia, and they're going to tell about how their contribution to the UN Sustainable Goals, and we have Mr. Homi Gandhi here. Thank you for your presence. And he has a big history with the experiences of the UN, so he can help us answer any questions and concerns and how we can get more involved. So starting off, I'll just give you all a description on when the UN was founded. So the UN started in 1945, and its responsible is to take actions and issues confronting humanity, such as climate change, security, peace, human rights, health emergencies, and gender equality. The UN provides a forum to its members to express views in the General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, and the NGO committees. It has become a mechanism for governments and NGOs to solve problems together. FEZANA gained a place on the roster for the non-governmental organization with the UN in 1997. And the three people who were involved in this mission were late Dr. Verahrami, Rohinton Rivetna, and Rose Patel. And it's not been easy being at the roster for the United Nations. As you can imagine, there are 10 million NGOs, and to have a spot at the UN, there are certain benchmarks and there is a selective process to gain the status. FEZANA has its own set of challenges to gain the spot. And the first commission that went, the delegate that went to the UN was in 2002 at the 55th session. So you can imagine, we gained a place on the roster in 1997 and the first delegation went into 2002. After that, until now, we had 77 Zoroastrians participate at these conferences from all around the globe. These conferences have been held in Paris, Rome, Melbourne, Tokyo. Is there anyone in the room who's been to a previous United Nations conference? Anyone here? Okay, one. Okay, good job. So next, I would like to introduce you all. It's the UN 17 Sustainable Goals. And a little about them is, it's to think about these UN Sustainable Goals started in 2015 when 193 world leaders from different member states came together. And their agenda was transforming our world, the 2030 agenda. So you can imagine as youth, we will be involved in these 17 sustainable goals, a point in our lifetime, either if it's in our work, colleges, universities. How many of you here have known about or heard about these 17 sustainable goals? Quite a few. I'm glad. That's good. So as a youth, we can come together with FEZANA and we can work together on solving these economic challenges. You can see these goals have been spoken about in the session at the Congresses these past few days. The first thing that Homi Gandhi talked about was world peace and how we can bring about that. Then we went on a session with on the environment and climate change. And then women had their own panel. So most of these are being covered today at our Congress right here. Most importantly, our Zoroastrian prayers, you would see Yahawu Beyo even talks about nurturing those who are needy, dependent. So that talks about goal number 1, poverty, and goal number 2. Also, we have the Gathas, which speaks on gender equality. And I definitely agree, being at the United Nations is an extraordinary experience to be surrounded there with members from different states and government organizations. But we also want you all to be informed over here that we can make a change on the grassroots level. And what I mean by grassroots level is at the local level, in our own very communities, in our own local homes. So, example that FEZANA has been a part of it is when we as a community came together and gave blankets to those who were affected at the earthquake in Pakistan, or when we also stood in solidarity with our Jewish members during the Pittsburgh synagogue attack. So these 17 sustainable goals is something to think about in your own homes and not to have anyone left out. And the big question that we come to next is what we can do, and we today want to bring you 2 solutions. First is be an ambassador for change, and I know we've brought this up in a lot of sessions. If you decide to be a part of the UN and go to one of our meetings, make sure you have a strong impact on what Zoroastrianism is about and how you want to bring it to different members and NGOs over there. And secondly is the Day to Serve. We want to start a Day to Serve, which is from September 21st to October 2nd. It's a 1.5 week long project that you can start in your community, Zoroastrian community at your local place, and then you can go on the website and mention about what you did or come to us and mention. The booklet that some of you got, which I gave out in the beginning, it's a nice booklet to see the 17 sustainable goals behind it. And in front of it, you have names of 2 people with their email addresses whom you can mention to them on the day of serve, like what do you want to do and how you want to be a part of it. So these are the 2 main important parts. I want to make sure the youth over here takes action. Next, I'll give the mic on to Anna and Nadia, and they're going to say how they implemented those 17 sustainable goals in their local and global communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. So, I guess I'm talking in this mic, sorry. It's there. Thank you. I'm very disorganized today. So, you're going to get very familiar with these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, during the span of this talk. So, what I want to do is talk a little bit about what brought me to the first UN conference I attended, which was in June of 2017, and that was actually the Oceans Conference. And so basically, growing up, I had a very strong interest in something called bioacoustics, which I found out greatly aligns with Sustainable Development Goals 13, 14, and 15, or climate action, life below water, and life on land. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what bioacoustics is and how that aligns with the SDGs, and then go into how it relates to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and then talk about my experience at the UN. So while I was an undergraduate at Cornell, I got involved with a research group called the Elephant Listening Project, also known as ELP, and I'm working with them to this day still. So basically what ELP does is apply acoustic technology to the monitoring of forest elephant populations in Central Africa. And we're working to conserve the species, basically doing landscape scale monitoring for elephant movement and tying that to looking at things such as gunshot density. And the Elephant Listening Project is part of a larger research group at Cornell called the Bioacoustics Research Program. So everyone there is working in the field bioacoustics, which is the study of sounds produced by and affecting living organisms. So people are working on species such as gibbons, crickets, elephants, seals, whales, lots of things. So the whole goal is to preserve these species and to continue to preserve the habitats that they live in. And so the two main landscapes that we listen to are rainforest and Arctic, and I wanted to just make this a little more interactive, play you guys some sounds. So. So that was the rainforest, is the rainforest. And next, let's listen to Arctic, which sounds pretty alien, so get ready for this. So in places where visual cues are really limited, sound is very important. And so now I want you guys to think a little bit about how we make sound. Can anyone give me an example? Talking. Clapping. Anyone else? Singing, great. So those are all really great examples. So sound is really important to us. It carries meaning, it allows us to communicate, it allows us to convey emotion. So the same applies for other animals. So here's 3 more sounds. Bearded seal. Bowhead whale. Spotted hyena. Okay, sorry about that. And now I was going to play one sound from my favorite animal, though I'm a little biased, an elephant. So this is what an elephant sounds like. So why is listening so important? Why am I talking about this? How does it relate to the SDGs? So I'm going to play another sound, surprise. And I want you guys to listen carefully to what happens at the end. So this is a black-cast hornbill, which is one of the most trafficked animals in Central Africa. And they're a keystone species, so they're very important to the survival of the ecosystem. So that gunshot probably ended the life of that bird, and it's probably because its skull they wanted to sell its skull on the internet for $180, a mere $180. So basically my lab and the greater research program I'm in, we're not only listening to the sounds produced by animals, but the sounds affecting them, which is called anthropogenic noise. So that comes from gunshots, that comes from shipping noise, and that comes from planes. It comes from a variety of places or ways that we're impacting the environment. So now I want to demonstrate this. So I'm going to have you guys perform 2 activities. So right now I want you guys to pair up with someone close to you, look at your shirt tags, and then raise your hand and let me know where your shirts are from. Alright, when you're ready to share, raise your hand. Okay, so we have one shirt from Cambodia, Vietnam, China, Bangladesh, Philippines. 80, okay. So as we can see, I don't know if there are a lot of people from Vietnam and Cambodia and Haiti here, but chances are your shirt originated from somewhere where you don't live. So how do you think it got to you? Planes, ships. Great. Okay, so we're going to do another activity. I need 2 volunteers. Oh wow, your hand's up already. Sure. Alright, so I need one of you to stand here, and then the other one on the other end of the room.
I'll go there.
Okay, so you are going to read this out loud. That's a fun fact. And then, what's your name?
Yazad.
Yazad. You're going to repeat what you hear, okay? Whenever you're ready. And just yell it.
Okay. The calls of the blue whales are the loudest sounds made by any animal on the planet.
Calls of the blue whales are the loudest sounds made by any animal on the planet.
Great, that was awesome. Okay, you guys can sit down. No. So, yeah, give me a round of applause. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. You're going to read that next fun fact, but now I need everyone in the audience to clap their hands and stomp their feet while he's talking. Okay? Go. Okay, that sounds great, but the fun fact is that an octopus has 3 hearts. Thank you guys very much. So, as you guys can see, when there's a lot of noise that impairs your ability to communicate, and the same applies for organisms living in the environment, whether that's terrestrial or marine. So this is probably going to be very loud. I just want to show what shipping noise sounds like underwater. No, I don't. So basically what I want you guys to take away from this is that every decision you make as a consumer, whether it's to buy another shirt, that has a direct impact on the environment. And that's where you guys can start getting involved in the SDGs, okay? So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about my involvement at the UN. So I'm going to hop back up here. So while my passion for acoustics was discovered through research opportunities offered to me at Cornell, the FEZANA and the greater Zoroastrian community have greatly aided my ability to participate in learning more about these fields that I'm interested in. So like I said, the biggest opportunity was provided to me by FEZANA in June of 2017 when I attended the UN's Oceans Conference and then went on to present at the Commission on the Status of Women this past March. And so basically these conferences provided me with the opportunity to interact with people from all over the world interested in various topics, but all engaged in the fight to achieve the sustainable development goals. So I was able to meet 2 longtime heroes, which was really cool. Sylvia Earle, who's a visionary oceanographer and a very inspirational woman, and Anrik Sala, who's a National Geographic photographer in residence. And more than that, I was able to participate in and engage in dialogue surrounding topics from sustainable small-scale fishery models in Belize to addressing inequality and equity through investment in social protection systems for the empowerment of women and girls in Nigeria. So the opportunity to attend both of these conferences has opened my eyes to the diversity of work being done all around the globe by organizations big and small, and we're all focused on achieving these sustainable development goals. So they allow for Zoroastrian youth to network with other youth, but also with the broader global community, and they have been so vital in my journey to where I am today and where I hope to go in the future. So I urge each of you here to look into these special opportunities. We're going to talk a little bit more about how exactly you can get involved, how you can look for the application, and deadlines and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I'm Nadia Jam. I love the topic of bioacoustics. I mean, I've never heard of it before, but that activity I hope showed you how important her work is. Anna, you're great. My work is a bit different. I did an internship in Nepal in the spring of 2018 for 3 months, and I worked for an NGO called Nepal Ban Landmines Campaign. And my responsibility, in essence, was to create online posters and campaigns, write articles, to show that, to encourage other NGOs to collaborate and become donors to our NGO, because our NGO, we do get funding from the government, the Nepali government, but it's not nearly enough to support all the women and children landmine survivors. Landmines being explosive devices that were used in the Civil War in 2001. But being exposed to living in Nepal showed that, there's a lot of sexism. Who here has been to India or Nepal or Iran? Okay, so, and how many of you have seen the cultural differences, especially the discrepant sexism that exists in the practices? Yeah, so the same people who visited these countries also witnessed something in common, and Nepal wasn't any better. I saw and experienced firsthand that showed the drastic cultural differences between developing and developed countries. The geographic isolation of the scattered Nepali makes women and girls susceptible to legal discrimination and treatment. Sorry, I forgot that the slides existed. This was the international internship program that I was connected through my school. So if any of you are in university, make sure that you know that there's a program that's in place. As you can tell, we're all women, and there were actually 50 slots that were open, but I think like 20 of us actually went. And University of Ottawa is a massive university, so you'd be surprised there's not that much diversity. And I don't know, for some reason that women are primarily interested in humanitarian work, and that's a debate, and that's another topic. But I think men have just as much as an important role to play in philanthropic work. This is the logo of the NGO I volunteered with, interned with, and this was the office. It was really cool. I painted that that was actually a shelf. This looks like a shelf. We were holding a 5-day robotics workshop to empower girls, teach them how to code. And they were making robots, and they're supposed to have a competition, play soccer, but we needed a soccer field. And obviously budget is restricted, so we took a shelf that was in the office, flipped it upside down, and painted a soccer field on it, and held a robot tournament on top of a soccer tournament. That was amazing. Yeah, they're just, yes, really grateful people. They do so much with so little, and I learned how to do that. Wow. Yes, so the geographic isolation, it's a huge problem. The population is extremely scattered. 80% of the population lives in the rural areas, and those areas are often the most mountainous, very poor accessibility to education, information, and not very established political structures exist easier. So it's inhibiting the rural population, the majority population, from being involved in meaningful dialogue and participating in politics. I'm going off of my speech a lot. So, since the creation of a decentralized political system pioneered by the renewed constitution of 2015, Nepal's central government has transferred many of its activities to local governments in hopes of becoming a recognized democracy. So right there is Kathmandu. Before the constitution, all the power was concentrated right there. But the constitution, great initiative, right? But how do you put de facto, de jure, so there are these terms, de facto and de jure, I'll be using them a lot. De jure is what is written in the law, it's official, it's in formal documents, such as the Constitution, and de facto is what is the reality. Are we transferring what is written in the law and actually practicing it and abiding the law? Okay. But like you guessed, even after this Constitution, these local governments are dominated by men, and power remains in the hands of the expected few. This is a picture of local dialogue that takes place right now. And I mean, what do you notice? Does anyone notice anything? Men, yeah. That's the reality. This is even after the Constitution. So yeah, a lot of work to be done. Excuse me. So, actually, let's go back to there. So 81%, like I said, of Nepal's population lives in rural, often mountainous areas, really poor accessibility to clean water and electricity. And that comes up, I'll bring that up soon. All right, so Nepal's campaign to ban landmines, their primary mission was to financially and socially assist women and children landmine survivors in the most affected areas. They did so by empowering them through vocational training and school subsidies, and by including their voices in political dialogue as a way to pressurize the government to create concrete policy that corresponds with their constitutional promises, to promote more diverse political institutions, and of course, to pressure politicians to sign the UN treaties that ban the use of inhumane explosives. So a lot of my work was also to try to get the Nepali government to sign these UN treaties, because the initiative has been taking place. Several countries have signed and ratified. Nepal has yet to be there, despite all the tragedies that still take place. Because the reality with landmines is that they're also explosive remnants of war, and these are little objects that might not have necessarily gone off during the duration of the war, but they're still there. And they happen to be in the farmland. And because they're in the farmland, a lot of people are discouraged from using that farmland and actually using it for harvesting and crops, bringing in money to their families. So there's a lot of agricultural land that's unused because of the fear of losing a limb. And arguably, losing a limb is much worse than dying, according to many survivors that the organization interviewed. And often they're young girls. All right, so after returning from Kathmandu back to school, I chose to focus my international research project on how religion, ritual, caste, and geography invalidate the law, and hence rendering Nepal's efforts ineffective when addressing gender equality. So those are the Sustainable Development Goals that I have focused on, is Sustainable Development Goal 6, sanitization, and Sustainable SDG 10, reduced inequalities. So the most fascinating yet disheartening thing that I delved into my research was the social tradition of chapauti. Has anyone heard of chapauti before?
Yeah.
Have you heard of it? Cool.
It's a place, right? Chapauti.
It's not quite a place, it's a practice.
Oh, okay.
So the chapauti predominantly prohibits Hindu women from the rural west, the more isolated area of Nepal, the rural west, from participating in normal family activities while menstruating. and after childbirth because they are deemed as impure. How many women here feel impure on their periods? I'm sorry, it's a personal question, but honestly, safe space, who feels impure when you're on your period? Religiously, yeah, you feel impure, you feel dirty. But if you're another, she mentioned how you should use it actually to empower you, and it's a privilege, and I'll delve into that later, sorry, going off topic. So yes, Chapauti is primarily driven by the superstition that if an impure woman on her period stays in the house, the gods will be so infuriated that wrath will be inflicted and consequences will affect the entire family. Community beliefs, as well as deep-rooted traditions, make Chapauti difficult to abolish, even though it is illegal, and the punishment is a fine of 3,000 rupees and a 3-month jail term. CNN's headline sums it up pretty well. Nepal's menstruation huts may be banned, but stigma remains deadly. And these are some examples of the huts. It's disgusting what kinds of conditions they have to live in. But the first time you actually get your period, you have to be in this hut for 14 days. Afterwards, you have to be in there from 4 to 7 days, depending on when your period finishes. And if you're a mother and you have children, you have to take care of those children in those huts. So it's not just affecting the mothers, it really is a universal issue. So deaths and incidents have been reported by large news media sources. New York Times tells the story of a teenage girl killed by a fire in the Chapauti hut in February 2019. On a freezing January night in Nepal's far west, 17-year-old Parvati Bogati had lit a fire to keep warm as she prepared to spend the bitterly cold and wet Himalayan winter night alone in a hut. Her blanket caught on fire while she was asleep and filled the enclosed room with smoke, suffocating her and making her a victim of superstition. And this is that article. A couple years earlier, the New York Times also reported a similar story of a woman shunned during her period from a snake bite. Tulasi Shahi's tragic end should be told. That's why I'm here. Every month, when Tulasi's period came, she was sent to stay in her uncle's hut, the one where he keeps his cows tied up in a village of Western Nepal. Imagine being treated as an animal. The month of July 2017 was no different. She slept there on wooden boards, laid on the ground, but this time she was bitten by a poisonous snake mid-sleep. Her mother took her to a shaman, but he could not cure her. Then she took her to a health clinic, and they did not have the anti-venom she needed. She died in her mother's arms that morning, and it just seems so preventable, which makes it that much more tragic. Imagine being shunned to a shed for 4 to 14 days and being treated like an animal. You aren't just at risk of smoke inhalation and snake bites, but of physical and sexual abuse and of poor nourishment due to the dietary restrictions Chapauti also instills. So one aspect of Chapauti is restricting the women on their periods to have access to nutritional food, often the most fruits, vegetables, and it's a time where actually we need more nutrition. So the superstition is that if they eat an apple, for example, that the apple tree it came from will be rendered impure and it'll be contaminated, and the tree will no longer bear any fruit for the rest of the village. It sounds completely crazy, but this fear is really preventing women from really changing the custom and speaking up. This is a picture, I don't know if you read that. Feeding women. You can't even use common utensils, you can't be in the same kitchen. It's really disheartening. And it's not only the rural women who are affected, but it is seen to be a common female struggle in Nepal. A mother of a dear friend of mine, she was of a higher Newar caste. Newar caste are known as to be the most politically, economically, socially progressive caste in Nepal. So you'd think that, a mother living in Kathmandu will not follow that custom. But lo and behold, she did, and she felt like it was out of her obligation. Her son was well educated. She had another daughter that completely condemned the practice. But at that generation, she felt like she could be a potential harm to her family, and she would go at any cost to avoid that. So the son was really angered, like, why is my mom doing this? She's a smart woman, but the best of us believe in the most superstitious things. And when we have the privilege to speak out about it, that's in the forum, like we did at the Commission of the Status of Women, I'm relating about to the UN now, then it's extremely important to highlight this. And I wasn't aware of this before my internship, but now extremely enlightened, I'd like to share it with you. All right, now I'd like to reflect on this, on what, all of you to reflect with me, of course. What irrational superstitions and inequalities exist in our own worlds? Well, I've thought about it, and I realized that on a much lower, but still discernible degree, the concept of a woman's purity during her period exists in Zoroastrianism. The concept was beautifully articulated by Behnoosh once again about how the reason we do not enter places of worship is because of metaphysical reasons. Once we enter the Avesta room, we are contributing to the vibrations and the frequencies. And for the sake of contributing to the spirituality, yes, you don't need to enter the Avesta room, but make sure that it is your choice and that you are not just merely being receptive and submissive to someone that's told you that is out of respect. The important thing is to question what we're doing. It's okay if you don't agree with it. It's okay if someone told you it's wrong and you don't necessarily agree. But honestly, just question it. It may not be a feminist or a man or woman issue, but it's definitely a submissive issue. So yes, periods are beautifully and purely biological. It is a necessary and natural process. It is the only way that we can expand this religion. And we shouldn't make one gender feel shameful or humiliated because of such an inevitable reality. When we see injustices that sadden us in another part of the world, we tend to distance ourselves and feel like we can't do much about it. When in fact, those injustices most likely exist in our own backyards, but they are just manifested differently. So there's no reason to feel completely hopeless when you can take action in the comfort of your familiar place. Like for vocalizing the importance of women earning the title of Mubedyar, or of questioning things in the Vendita that people irrationally still follow. That's controversial. Anyways. So a lot of what I am passionate about is actually being addressed at the UN, by the UN. There were actually two events at the Commission for the Status of Women regarding menstrual inequalities. One of them was focused on sub-Saharan Africa, and the other one was more vaguely discussed. But yes, attending the CSW was just a given for me. FEZANA exposed me to the progress and work within an issue I have invested myself in. The UN has criticized discrimination and stigma surrounding menstruation as it affects the SDGs. Events at the CSW have consistently pointed out that Target 6.2, this is, so under clean water and sanitization, 6.2, it calls for access to sanitation for all by 2030. This is a goal that the UN has proposed. And it requires, quote, special attention to the needs of women and girls, quote, especially if unhygienic menstrual hygiene practices have been linked to negatively affect school attendance. Now, aligning with SDG 17 regarding partnerships for the goals, there we go, 17. The UN has partnered with NGOs to provide menstrual supplies, empower its victims, and educate communities. The most significant involvement the UN has had was in the Nepal earthquake in 2015. There was a massive earthquake, and it rendered a lot of things inaccessible for women. So they took their initiative by providing menstrual hygiene products, sending it, having headquarters where women had a safe space. To give it back to Behnoosh for the Q&A. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nadia and Anna. Definitely they will inspire me to do so much more at a global level or a local level with the sustainable goals. We have 15 more minutes left. I want to also divert our time towards you and answering your questions. But going over the most important part, I want to introduce you both to the co-chair of the UN NGO committee. It's Afreet Mistry and Verahrami. If you are interested in the future UN events, I would suggest you to take their names down. It's also in the pamphlet, in the sheet that I gave you, the bookmark. Also, Verahrami is the chair of the Zoroastrian Youth Without Borders program, and that program actually subsidizes you a part of your research that you're interested in. So if Nadia went to Nepal and Anna went to Africa and you are looking for funding and you have a strong research and you want to make an impact in the society, definitely we're here to support you on that level. Also, future events. I'm not sure if you can scan this code from where you're sitting. I haven't tried it out. But these are the future events of FEZANA that you can participate in with the United Nations. So the 68th United Nations Civil Society Conference is going to happen in August, this August from 23rd to 26th. I believe the registrations are finished for the session, but there's another ocean session that happens every year in June. There's Commission on Status of Women headquarters, which the picture was shown, we went to it. And then there is a day of serve, which we want to bring you all to and want you all to participate on a local level. For more information on how you can be a part of how you can register, the site, if you scan this link and go on the FEZANA site and find the NGO link, it's going to give you a lot of detailed description of the past events that we've been to and what's coming up. Also, if you are a member of FEZANA Bulletin, I know registrations have started for the Commission on Status of Women, which is next year. So already things have been started, and we want you all to be on like deadlines, like be strong on deadlines and just get your names in if you're interested in. So questions from you all, that's more important. So yeah, introduce your name and go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Celia. I was just wondering, do you have to be from North America to take part in FEZANA?
That's a really good question.
Do we have an extra mic for the ones who are asking? That's all? Okay, I think you're loud enough. Okay, so her question was, do you have to just be in North America to be a part of the UN events? Does Nadia or Anna, any one of you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's very easy. You have to, there are two events which are taking place in the coming year. The one is the NGO conference in Salt Lake City. I believe the dates are a little different. There's a change. I think because it's starting on 26th, but it's 26, 27, 28. But I'll check it up and let you know. In any case, this is FEZANA has participated actively in two main events. One is the annual NGO conference, and the second is Commission on Status of Women, which starts with the end of February, early March, and it coincides with International Women's Day. For any of this conference you want to get involved, I think you should contact Verahrami and Afreet Mistry.
But you have to be North American to get involved with the question.
Sorry?
You have to be a North American.
No. You don't have to.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we invite people coming from other parts of the world.
We definitely appreciate people from a global perspective, and yes, at the UN there are people from all over the world. So if you're a member from a different state or country, you are welcome.
FEZANA NGO is registered as a faith-based entity with the UN. And we have suggested that in other parts of the world, other Zoroastrian associations, organizations can also register an NGO, and we will help them to support them and nominate them to be the NGOs at the United Nations. No one has yet come up.
A European version or we have FEZANA, but there's a European version of that. Let's see, so can you register yourselves as a UN NGO?
That's a good idea.
Yes, they can. There are many NGOs. There are many NGOs around the world who are registered.
So once you're in UN NGO, you sign up and for these conferences, you get all the resources directly from the UN, because every NGO, how many NGOs were there? Like
There are about
3,000?
There are about 2,000 NGOs.
There were 2,000 NGOs at the CSW.
No,
and
in total. They don't all come up.
Okay, they don't all come up, but every NGO has their own delegates that they invite, and you can be one of those. But yeah, FEZANA can bring North Americans, no problem. Just how do they get a part of the email list? Because that's how I found the opportunity. It was an email in my inbox that I often ignore.
But FEZANA has a FEZANA bulletin which comes out every month. And if you go on FEZANA website and register yourself to receive that electronic copy, you will receive it every month automatically. It gives all the information, including anything happening with FEZANA NGO. So you will receive that information in advance about it. Or you can go to FEZANA website, and there is a segment of FEZANA NGO at the UN, and you can get all that information too.
Thank you. Yeah. What's your question?
That World Oceans Day, is that just a day marked every year, or is that an actual event or conference?
Anna can speak more on that. She went to one of the oceans.
So
World Oceans Day is a day, but they recognize it at the UN. When I was there, I think it went on for, the whole conference was at least a week. And then I think the first day was World Oceans Day, so it was very nice. You know, you sit in the General Assembly Hall, which is quite an experience, just hearing the buzz of all these people from all over the world representing different countries. And so they recognized that they had a lot of indigenous populations come in and talk about how, you know, they depend on the ocean for subsistence, etc. So yeah, I liked CSW a lot, but the oceans one was really cool. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
What would we do as a part of the Zoroastrian delegation?
What do we do as a Zoroastrian delegation?
At the CSW, we offer any programs on the theme of that particular CSW meeting which is going to take place. And basically, the programs are related to women's empowerment, women's education, upliftment of women, and of that nature. So we prepare a team which is going to represent us, and then we have online discussions, conference call, and who is going to participate, bring the ideas together, and then make a presentation. Make a presentation. Before making a presentation, we have to offer them, and we may or may not be selected. Once we are selected, we go further and make a presentation.
So on the last Commission on Status of Women that we went, this was a topic which we presented at FEZANA, educating girls and empowering tool to promote prosperity and gender equality. And there were members from our community who spoke about their trips to Nepal and different parts of the world and what they did with education. If that answers your question.
And just to clarify, there were 6 of us on the panel, and there are 2 sorts of events at the UN conferences. They're called parallel events and side events. We were a parallel event, correct?
I think we were a side
event.
Side event.
So do you want to elaborate on what they
Yeah, I can elaborate on them. There are sessions that happen at the UN headquarters, which are attended by government and big associations from all over the world, which bring about change and policy making. And then there are NGOs that are also presented there. So we are as an NGO, which is a side event. So you have sessions inside the headquarters, and then you have sessions outside the headquarters, which are held by the NGOs. So we were the ones with a side event.
And we came up with the topic ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of independence and freedom. What you can, it's so cool. I thought it was a really big deal, but then once we got there, we had a room actually similar to this size of people showing up and us sharing our experiences, less related to Zoroastrianism, obviously. But people in the audience were like, whoa, what is FEZANA? So it was an educative opportunity to tell what our faith was. Looked good on us too.
Yeah, do you want to go with the next?
Is it only those for commissions and programs that you attend, or is FEZANA just choosing to limit to those four? Are you invited to them, or is there an opportunity to branch out with those four commissions?
Mr. Homi, is there an opportunity to branch out other than the going to other opportunities other than the ones that I mentioned, the DPI and the UN Status Commission?
Yeah, there are many opportunities available. You have also worked as an intern at the United Nations, if you would like to be getting involved. And once you have experience here, and the opportunity comes up to work at the United Nations, there are opportunities available. People have gone forward and employed themselves. Besides the two events in which FEZANA participates, there are many other events taking place. We don't have capacity to be present at all the events. We are working all volunteers. And as a result, if you are keen about representing FEZANA or yourself, we will facilitate you if you are interested in any particular subject.
So these are not some of the main events that we participate in. If there's something else that you see and you're interested in, you can reach out to the UN NGO committee and say if this is something, or is FEZANA part of, can we take part of it? And they'll research and let you know. But there's, as I said, there's a fixed level of standard and they're very strict on attendance and who can participate and a fixed number of people going, so it can get harder and tougher.
Every year, I believe there's a Zoroastrian Youth UN representative that's chosen. Right now it's Sabrina.
Sabrina.
So right now every year they're chosen. So if you're interested to be a youth rep, also once again contact Verahrami. There's also an online, it's a WhatsApp group with a bunch of UN youth leaders. If you want to be included in that, I am included in it, but it's obviously on mute because there's so many opportunities just sent in that one group chat. It's people from all over the world. If you're interested in being part of that, most of the opportunities are fortunately in New York. But if you want to do an internship during the summer, please contact me and I'll get you in touch.
Okay, I found the information. The 68th United Nations Civil Society Conference begins on 26th of August and ends on 29th. This is that correction. They changed the dates subsequently.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, so let's say I wanted to go for infrastructure, or do I have to give a talk, or is it like, can we take part in it?
So,
sorry, question about infrastructure?
Yeah, let's say I was interested in a topic in the infrastructure, that sector.
So when I went to the Oceans Conference, I didn't present. I just participated. So yes, you have an option to go, just get involved, network,
Amazing.
and then if you want to present, there's always that as an option if we get accepted, like Behnoosh was saying earlier.
Yeah, presentation is always an option that you can do, but if you haven't really, you've thought of something but you haven't worked on it yet, you can still attend these conferences. So for submitting an application, you have to give a cover letter in your resume. Make sure you write that cover letter with a strong purpose on why you want to go. So write it down if you're going to an Oceans Conference, what with the infrastructure relates to what you want to go in. Like make your cover letter strong. Just don't be like, I'm interested in you and I want to go to this. make sure you like hit on one of these goals, like what in the goal interests me and how I see myself making that impact at the UN. Yeah, that's a question. Yeah. Any more questions? 5 more minutes? Okay.
I have one thing to add.
Yeah.
If you're really interested in pursuing a career with the UN, I know back in the day I wanted to work at headquarters as well. That's not the case right now, but for some of you that dream might remain. So actually there's this girl, Armita Behbudi. She is also Zoroastrian. She was inspired at the Sustainable Development Goal Conference, again through FEZANA, and now she's actually doing an internship in the East Asian Pacific UN headquarters in Thailand. And that's where she's spending the next 3 months, and all that is because of FEZANA. So all of you really do have potential. Yeah, so going to one conference might spark really pique your interest in humanitarian work.
And coming to the point I said, no one left behind. This is to sustain 17 sustainable goals. So we'll make sure in FEZANA also no one gets left behind, but definitely we need to work on it together with a strong purpose. That's the main reason. Yeah. Any more questions? We have probably 3 more minutes left. Yeah, Sal, go ahead.
Does FEZANA have a presence at the World Health Organization?
World Health Organization.
There are many agencies of United Nations. We do not have a direct representation, but if there is an issue which requires our attention, and if FEZANA can participate, we can participate in that particular discussions. We had been invited when I was a major representative about many years ago. We had been invited to join the UN organization or UN sister location in Vienna and in Geneva, and we had appointed at that time a representative there, but he or she, I do not remember who it was, did not participate very actively at that location. As a result, we could not really participate in those activities.
Thank you. I think we're done. Kiras is giving us warnings. Yeah, thank you all for being here, and I hope
Stand by, guys, just for the...
And of course, we want to give you guys these placards. Thank you guys.
Put the pad in the middle this time. This is
Yeah.